So imagine getting married, and on the day of the wedding, that's when you're meeting your partner's family, minus parents and siblings, for the very first time. And we're not just talking about distant cousins and stuff like that, we're talking about everybody else in the family. We didn't have to imagine that. That was actually a reality because prior to us getting married, our families didn't really know each other, didn't even know about us to begin with. So the Thursday night of the wedding, when she came over to my house, that's when she would have met all 400 plus people who are family, neighbors, and friends. And then on the Sunday thereafter, for our reception or our walima, that's when I would have met, and she introduced me individually by name to each of the close to 300 people there who were her family members.
All of them were my family members.
The majority of them.
Well, okay, the majority was. But not 300. 300 didn't show up. If 300 had showed up, he would have been in trouble.
These are the challenges you face when you marry into a large family. By the way,
welcome to episode 34 of Happily Entangled AF. My father had 6 brothers and 3 sisters, and my mom had 6 brothers and 3 sisters. So from little it was confusing because we were like the youngest set of cousins. So getting to know our cousins took a little bit of doing. So I could just imagine what he was going through while I was introducing him to my cousins.
well, to be fair, I kind of reciprocated on my end. I don't know offhand how many siblings my father had, like I didn't check it beforehand. But when we think about our family, I would usually think about my great-grandfather, whose first name was Rojan, and he thereafter gave his surname to all of his first name as surname to all of his children, and that's where our family started here in Trinidad and Tobago. So when we think about our family, we think about everybody for all 3 generations. Well, I was the 3rd generation, and every other generation thereafter. So we think about those people, and those are all family because there's no distinction, or at least growing up, we never made a distinction between an uncle who was your father's brother versus an uncle who was your father's cousin. So like I never had it in my head to say, well, my father has 3 sisters or X amount of brothers, etc. Everybody was auntie and uncle who was my father's cousin, and my father was 2nd generation, so that was a big family. And my grandfather had like about 30, my great grandfather, sorry, had like about 13 children. So wow. That gives you an idea of just how big and vast this family is, and we're not even talking about the ones who living outside of Trinidad. So wow. I reciprocated. So that's just to paint a picture, to give you an idea of the sheer size of both of our families and the difficulties that we would have had in getting to know one another's family members.
Yeah, up to now I would still ask him sometimes, like, okay, so where does that person live? Okay, and who's his sister? And then you kind of connect. But I will tell you, sometimes I have to tell him who his family is.
Admittedly, because like, especially pumpkin vine relations, like I rarely, and she knows that, like I don't know, I just kind of like zone out when from time you have to tell me more than 2 people to explain the relation. Like it's just a thing. It's not like I don't care.
I think it's a male thing.
Maybe like I would just settle for saying a cuz and call you cuz. I don't know how we's cousins, but a cuz, how you going? And that's about it. But she, on the other hand, would listen to my mother or anybody else in the family as they dissect and explain how this one is related, who this one got married to, and who their neighbor was. The only thing they don't discuss is the pets and the pets' names, I end up for all our whole talk. So, hey, cuz, how you going if you're looking at this? I love you.
So we kind of figured out a way how to, get around learning about each other's relatives and remembering their names as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about is their physical attributes. And, sometimes their nose, or the way they smile, tall, short, along those lines. That's how we would kind of do it.
Yeah, like I don't mean to sound shameless or anything here, but, it's just... this conversation she and I have, and I mean sometimes you remember somebody by a little quirk, a little something that they might consider a flaw, or have a big nose, or they're tall, or they're short, or they're plump, or they whatever, and like it just helps us. I hope that don't make us sound like bad human beings. We're not name calling or anything. It's just like, oh, this person who, kind of
yes,
thing.
Like he did that to one of my cousins. He says, oh, is your cousin with the big nose? Yes. she's the one with the plenty sisters? Okay, yeah, now I remember. Yes.
Until I met the other sisters, and all the other sisters also had big noses, and that leads us into our second point. So the first one was physical attributes. So we like describe some of them by their physical attributes, and then
Yeah.
when the physical attributes aren't enough, we come up thereafter with stories.
Yeah, so like one of the stories would be one of my cousins, she promised to go out for coffee with us, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened. And so now every time he meets her, he's like, the cousin who set him up for coffee. So she's been labeled. He does know her name now. Should we call her name?
No.
But every
But she
time,
knows who she is.
Every
Still
time.
waiting on the coffee.
Yeah, so that's one instance. The other one is my cousin Raya. She's got two boys. So
Yes.
he would say, okay, so the boy's mother.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Sharif and calling her their mommy. Yes, that one.
Yeah, because
So-
like in that instance, like those cousins, those sisters, they like real resemble, and so it's very difficult when you're now in it. You know, like I've not been in this family forever, so when you now get into the family, it's very difficult to tell one sister apart from the other and one cousin apart from the other. So you find anything that you could hold on to, and like I remember the boys, you know,
Sharif and
Koder, right? Because they also messaged me on mornings as well to participate in the challenge that I do on the show. And so I remember those boys, I know them well. So whenever she has to refer to that particular cousin, she'll always be like, oh, the boy's mom. And that's how I remember. And so we find all these other things, anything that I could hold on to, she will then use that as a point of reference to say, okay, so that person or the person with that or that story, this is that person and this is how they're connected. And it works. And over the years, we've found that, and yeah, we hope so you're hearing all sorts of noises, right? Remember, we're in lockdown, we can't go into a studio to record. So, Yanib! Oh gosh, he's mop!
Yeah, so that's just one of these stories, right? And then like, so my mommy's Guyanese. So when we go to Guyana now, that's like that's a family again for him to be introduced to.
Yeah.
So like, I think you would have met Nissa first, right? Nissa, she has Oasis Cafe. So that was easy. Nissa is at the cafe, easy name, and you just connect to Oasis.
Yeah.
And then Nissa's sisters now, there's a lot of sisters. So that took some doing to remember everybody, right?
Yes, and until such time as I was able to have interactions with them, like having interactions and spending time, even if you don't remember a name, you remember the interaction or you remember the memory, and that makes it a lot easier, right? So going to Guyana, not long after we got married, and spending time with our family there really did help, right? But there are some family members in Trinidad and even in Guyana who, and other parts of the world, who I have not yet had the chance to meet, but I could go so far as to say that I already know, simply because they come up in conversation often, or maybe we have video
I'll tell you a
calls.
story of like this one, or
Yeah.
share my travels when I was there and what we would have done at some point in time. So he knows all these little stories that will connect
Yes.
to the family and connect the sisters or the siblings, the brothers. Okay, so you didn't meet everybody, but you kind of know little pockets of stories that helps you
Yes.
to connect with the individual without even meeting them per se.
So that's really three different sets of things so far. One is like the physical attributes to help you. The other is like when the physical attributes aren't enough, the stories that surround some of the family members. And then the other is, the stories that surround the family members that you know, and then the stories that surround the family members that you may not yet have had the chance to meet, right? So those are the three major areas so far. But we really decided to do this video to be able to share this with you, but to also ask you, what are some of the things that you do to help you remember,
All your
other
family
members of the
members.
family? Because
Yeah.
to be honest, it's going on 6 years now. We'll celebrate our 6th anniversary, God willing, soon. And I still don't know all of her family members. To be very frank, I still don't know all my family members.
Yeah.
But
'Cause I think I still mix up your cousin Fuzzy and what's his sister's name?
Nadira?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they look super young. Oh my god,
Yeah.
super young. And I still mix them up. Which one is which one? I know one has a daughter, one has a son, and that's how we kind of try to separate it and make it work. But yeah, It's a challenge.
Yeah. So how do you cope and how do you navigate these large families? I will say though, thankfully we didn't have the large family issues in terms of her coming to Gasparilla to live with us and me having like a large family here,
Living
you know,
here.
living
Yeah,
here.
that's
So that those are issues that we didn't have, and those are issues when you talk about large families that I'm sure many other couples would have to contend with. So thankfully we didn't have that. But if you have those issues, how have you been managing to deal with that? You know, like living, being married, being newlyweds in a household with a lot of
Close
people,
quarters, yeah,
a lot of siblings.
That's a challenge.
That's a different challenge altogether that we can't even pretend to know about because we've never, thankfully, had to live that. But how do you manage? Let us know in the comments below and share any other tips and tricks that you can with us about what you think we could do to help remember
Yeah,
each other's
definitely.
families better and more. You know?
Definitely.
Anything we missed out with?
I don't think so, but if you missed out anything, I know you're gonna share it with us in the comments below.
And I'm sure we could have been a lot more comprehensive and stuff like that too. But really and truly, it's lockdown. We home.
We don't have much to do.
Well, we do have much to do. That's not entirely true.
Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying the lockdown a little bit. I have to say.
Yeah,
It's like a holiday, I'm guessing.
regardless of how large or small your family is, I just want to end out by saying that I really do hope that that you're staying safe, that you're keeping well, and that you're not just keeping well physically, but like you're in a good mental headspace as well.
Yeah.
And like that's one of the reasons I think this is really one of the inspirations that's really driving both of us to continue to create content and to do things, because we realize that even if it provides one iota of relief to somebody, that's a lot, especially in these times. That is a lot. So thank you for the love that you continue to show to us, and I hope you get your large families to like, share, and subscribe to our channel as well. Yes,
Yes.
we little scandalous and shameless. If you don't ask, you wouldn't get. So I'm asking, please hit that like button right now. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Please follow the page on Facebook, and please share this video with
On
anybody
YouTube.
else. Yeah, with anybody else that you think would have either be able to relate to these challenges or be able to provide us with some suggestions as well on how we could continue to learn about each other's big family and deal with these big family problems. Hey, let me
It's
tell
not really
you,
big family problems. It's
It
just
is
a
a-
memory thing.
is a problem. Trust me, it's a problem, because when you go to a function and you meet up people, especially people who are family, who you know you've had conversations with, right? And you're talking to them and you're faking the conversation from the perspective of, I know I met you, I know I'm supposed to know your name, but I'm just going ahead with the conversation, and then I'll shamelessly go afterwards, well, shamefully I should say, go afterwards and ask her, babe, who's that? I just had a full essay long conversation with this person, and don't feel that she doesn't do the same thing to me too, because I've taught her the art. I'm learning how to do it. Anyways, the neighbor crank up the Indian music in the background, eh? So once that music starts, it'll finish, right? So this is where we have to end, right?
Thank you for viewing.